All right, I hope everybody's doing well. Another snow day, unbelievable. But hey, we'll get through it tomorrow. We'll review what we talked about today, and obviously move on a little bit more with World War II and the starting of it. Okay, so real quick, here we go. Two vocab terms: Anschluss and Lebensraum. Okay, I know Lebensraum was repeated, but obviously, just make sure you look at it. Okay, make sure that's something that you define and have that in your vocab, your vocab terms, because that's going to be a very, very important term for today's lesson, tomorrow, and then maybe into Wednesday more. But I just put it back on there just because, hey, it's something that we're going to discuss and go over today even more. And again, I just want to make sure that you have that. It's just kind of like a review, I guess, for our lesson today as a talk about it. All right, so that should be enough time for you to pause the video if need be and research and define those two terms. Okay, so we'll talk about that today, obviously. So real quick, I want to go over a little bit of what's going on in Germany now, okay? So as Hitler has taken power in Germany, right, we all know, we discussed it, we talked about it, targeting the youth, okay, with the Hitler Youth Program, the League of German Girls, and trying to provide a direct ideology towards his Nazi party to make sure that there was no opposition, no competition against his political party, and propaganda use, the control of the media, and really just kind of expanding this Nazi ideology into the people's minds constantly over time, over and over and over again, to manipulate the masses and to make sure that everybody kind of knows that, hey, Germany's moving in the right direction. We have this strong sense of nationalism again, this national pride within in Germany once again. Okay, that's what Hitler was trying to provide, and we talked about some of the key things that he promised and gave to the people, with trying to level off that unemployment rate and actually kicking it to a point where this depression was no longer in Germany, and the standard of living for all German citizens was increased dramatically over the time since he's been becoming, obviously became the Führer. And he did that because he tried to really build back up that military. He tried to expand German nationalism in all these cities, all these towns, and promoting the Nazi flag and propaganda and his ideology. And if anybody opposed him, they were kicked out. They were killed. They were exiled, right? They're pushed away. And we talked the other day about Kristallnacht, obviously some terrible things of how he was trying to push away some of these people, these Jewish citizens, and these people of Jewish culture and heritage out of Germany. Okay, and he did that by destroying their businesses, destroying any type of rhetoric, and the book burning and smashing out the windows and destruction of many of these businesses, schools, synagogues. Right, he burned down almost 900 synagogues all throughout Germany throughout this event in Kristallnacht. And we talked about the St. Louis, right, that ship, passenger ship that was trying to escape some of the burdens in Europe with what was happening with Hitler and the Kristallnacht and the starting of the Holocaust, really, and how these citizens were trying to escape Europe and expansion of the Nazi ideology, Nazism, and throughout Germany. And story because Cuba kept around 20 citizens off the boat of 900, right, to America, Canada. No one allowed them inside their borders. A lot of it was probably because they didn't want to create tensions within Germany and because of the problems with the Depression. And at the time, this was a sad time in American history. So this boat goes back to Europe. They reside in Belgium, and many of these citizens were actually taken by the Nazis and forced into these labor camps. It was kind of a sad story where these people were trying to seek refuge in the Western Hemisphere, but no one would take them in. All right, so like I mentioned before with Hitler, okay, he was really expanding German wealth, giving back to the people and promising the people what direction Germany was going to go in, and he accomplished it. So many citizens saw this advancement in their society. They're out of a depression. They had jobs. Their military was rising to this alarming rate to the point where they've It's almost a kickstart back of their strong sense of nationalism that they haven't seen since the start of World War One. And for the most part, these people accepted it, they embraced it, and they did whatever they're told because, again, everybody had a car, everybody had the ability to food to put on the table, and education, which obviously we know was obviously to a point where it was manipulative towards the youth, and with these different types of camps where the Hitler Youth would go to really become super soldiers in a way. Okay. But many citizens, again, because of the wealth that was coming into Germany at the time, because of the standard of living that was increased in Germany, they did what they were told and they listened. All right, they accepted their role in society, and they thought Hitler almost as a savior to the people in Germany. Okay, and that's kind of how he got away with this expansion, the start of World War II, and pushing a lot of these people that didn't share the similar beliefs and customs and political ideology, and they were pushed away. And that's kind of how they pushed their people, their citizens, to gather them up and push them out of society. All right, so moving on now, the biggest thing I want to talk about was this Lebensraum. Okay, so Lebensraum, which we discussed and went over, was something that Hitler wanted to try to expand. Okay, he wanted to try to expand the living space of the German people. At this time, Germany was 85 million people. Okay, and Hitler knew, you know what, we're going to be limited of resources, so we need to expand. We need to try to make sure that Germany has enough space so that they can grow. This Aryan race, this Aryan culture. Okay, we need, all right, they need the amount of food and supplies and opportunities with extra land and extra space. And this was his way of trying to promote to the German people of expansion and claiming back those lands that were taken away from them at the end of the Treaty of Versailles. All right, with Alsace-Lorraine, obviously in France, we're going to talk about that soon. Okay, and along the Rhine, moving towards Poland. Okay, moving towards Czechoslovakia. Some of the cultural aspects that were very similar in Austria-Hungary. Okay, and this was a way for Hitler to try to promote to the people, we need to expand. We need to try to increase and expand our Aryan race, our Aryan culture. And with that, the first thing I want to talk about, okay, is the Anschluss. Okay, so the Anschluss is just really how Germany expanded their influence, expanded their culture, their really just the Nazi regime into Austria. Okay, and they really did it because Austria was shooken up by the end of World War One. They were going through a depression. They didn't have the needs and way of an expansion like Germany had in ending this depression. Okay, so they were in poor state at the end of World War One, and they didn't have a guy like Hitler to turn them around and to try to increase the standard of living. So many Austrians were like, you know what, we see what's going on in Germany. We want a little bit of that. Okay, we see the wealth that is coming into Germany. We see how they're becoming a world power once again at the end of the Treaty of Versailles and at the end of World War One. They couldn't believe it. They're mind blown, and they saw Hitler as a strong leader. Okay, not everybody, obviously, but for the most part, if you're in a depression still and you see the country next door to you, where you had and shared a relationship and an alliance with, really prospering, you want a little bit of that. You want to try to take that in. And that's kind of what Austria did. They embraced it. So Hitler decided, well, we're going to march our military through the streets of Austria, okay, through their bigger cities, and we're just going to really show them what kind of power we are again. And they're just going to accept it. And that's exactly what happened. Right? It was almost like a huge parade marching through Austria, and the Austrian people were actually cheering on the German military, the German soldiers marching through. It's like, yes, this is exactly what we need and want. Right? We see what kind of power Germany is becoming at the end of World War One, through the Treaty of Versailles, through this depression they went through, and all of a sudden they're back to becoming the world's largest power once again, with all the new forms of weaponry and technology that has never been seen before. So the Austrian people were very accepting of it, for the most part. Okay, and a key takeaway. So we all know that Hitler was from Austria. Okay, their culture is very similar speak very similar language, okay? Religious aspects, you name it. They're all pretty much in line with one another. So Hitler thought this is going to be easy. They're going through depression. We're not anymore. We have a strong military, so we're just going to march our troops through there and show them the tanks, and they're going to accept the German way, the Nazi ideology, and that's exactly what happened. Right like that, just took it, okay? And they could do this with no opposition because the League of Nations, which we discussed and went over, France and Great Britain, they weren't strong enough. They didn't have the ability to stop Germany from marching through the streets and taking over Austria with whatever they intended to do, with whatever they wanted to do. And they accomplished it pretty easily without any kickback or opposition, right? Again, because they were so strong. And the Austrian people were very accepting of it because they wanted this prosperity, once again, this wealth. And France and Great Britain couldn't stop them. There's no way of stopping them, right? So that's the Anschluss. That's what I wanted to talk about today. That's all. And then Lebensraum, okay? Expanding the living space of the German people. So make sure you watch this. There might be a quiz tomorrow, just to let you know. So take care. Have a good one, guys. We're going to be moving on tomorrow more with Hitler's expansion. Take care.